The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. It is Thursday, January 27th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. We're going to dispense with the regular introductions right at the moment. As you know, President Obama responded to YouTube.com, and the most popular question out there was this question on ending the war on drugs from a Leap member. We're going to play that right away for you, and we'll get into discussing it in hour two.
It wasn't one of our official categories, I'll be honest with you, but we got a lot of questions on drug policy, and maybe even more relevant.
I think we did last year, too.
There are a lot of folks online who want to know your thoughts on it, and I think with Prop 19 in California last fall, it's even more on people's minds. Right. Here's the top voted question in that area.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Mackenzie Allen. I'm a retired law enforcement officer and member of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. The so-called war on drugs has been waged for 40 years at a cost of $1 trillion and thousands of lives, with nothing to show for it but increased supplies, cheaper drugs, and a dramatic increase in violence associated with the underworld drug market. Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is a entirely legitimate topic for debate. I am not in favor of legalization. I am a strong believer that we have to think more about drugs as a public health problem. When you think about other damaging activities in our society, smoking, drunk driving, making sure you're wearing seatbelts. Mm-hmm. Typically, we've made huge strides over the last 20, 30 years by changing people's attitudes. And on drugs, I think that a lot of times we have been so focused on arrests, incarceration, interdiction, that we don't spend as much time thinking about how do we shrink demand. And this is something that, within the White House, we are looking at very carefully. As I said,
any ideas?
Some of this requires shifting resources, being strategic. Where does it make sense for us to really focus on interdiction? We have to go after drug cartels that not only are selling drugs but are also creating havoc, for example, along the U.S.-Mexican border. Mm-hmm. But are there ways that we can also shrink demand in some cities, for example, it may take 6 months for you to get into a drug treatment program.
Right.
Well, if you're trying to kick a habit and somebody says to you, well, come back in 6 months, that's pretty discouraging.
Yeah.
And so we've got to do more in figuring out how can we get some resources on that end of it and make sure that, and also look at what we're doing when we have nonviolent first-time drug offenders. Are there ways that we can make sure that we're steering them into the straight and narrow without automatically resorting to incarceration, drug courts, mechanisms like that? So these are all issues that are worth exploring. and worth a serious debate.
Yeah, they're worth a debate, but he's already made his mind up. He's not for legalization. We'll discuss more of this in hour 2. Coming up next, your hemp headlines with Cannabis Carry.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapist will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
And now, a message from former President George W. Bush to remind the American people of our responsibility in our nation's war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
That's right, America. Use less drugs. Put down the Prozac, the Vioxx, and the Levitra, and turn to the herb. Use less drugs. Our national policy is no longer just say no. It's now just slow down.
You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carry.
This story comes from Gavin Aronson from Mother Jones News. He reports that Iowa State Representative Clell Bodler told him in 2009 that he was thinking of fibbing his way to get a medical marijuana card the next time he was in California, but he didn't believe him. But turns out the 71-year-old Republican that has served in the Iowa House since 1999 and has also been a trooper with the Iowa State Patrol since 1968 was telling the truth. He wasn't joking. In October, he was in California and falsely told a doctor that he suffered from depression and hemorrhoids and was able to get a medical marijuana card in California. He says he got his medical pot card to show how asinine it would be to legalize medical marijuana. Bodler opposes a proposal to pass a medical marijuana law in his home state of Iowa. When asked about the law in California, which states that anyone who fraudulently represents a medical condition or fraudulently provides any material misinformation to a physician can be tossed in jail for up to 6 months and fined up to $1,000, he said he would gladly appear in front of an ethics board because the, quote, Oriental doctor who only spoke broken English probably isn't a licensed physician. He wrote a letter about his experience in California outlining his adventure going to a Venice Beach center. Here are some excerpts. Quote, I rang the doorbell. Someone looked out a window in the door and let us in. I explained to them that I wanted medical marijuana and was admitted immediately by an armed security guard that had to weigh close to 110 pounds. He had 10 earrings on and about his face and ears. Bodler goes on to tell about how he and his son staked out the distribution center and noting that those coming out all appeared to be under 35 and in various states of drug intoxication. He ended up paying $50 and took 8 minutes to fill out a 6-page form. He said the only things he lied about were the hemorrhoids, depression, and he stated that he didn't have health insurance. He said he spent about 15 minutes with a doctor that spoke broken English and then was given a paper that the doctor signed and he signed as well and then walked out the door. Bodler will use his antics to help steer a debate in his home state of Iowa about the misuse of medical marijuana, but it can only be described as a red herring. No medical marijuana advocates in Iowa are trying to get a law passed that is permissive as California's law that was passed back in 1996.
Wow, Representative Bodler may not have hemorrhoids, but he's a pain in my ass, that's for sure. And just a little educational note there for the 72-year-old representative. Food is Oriental. People are Asian. Got it? This idea that you're going to go to California and you're going to go there where the law suggests that people can get medical marijuana for any condition a doctor deems necessary, and you lie and get that card, that should have any bearing on what Iowa may do for a medical marijuana law? It is ridiculous. Representative Bodler, I'd like you to try this, though. Again, I would like you to go undercover and try to get yourself a medical marijuana card in Oregon. Try to get one in Washington or Montana or Nevada or Maine or Michigan or Rhode Island or Vermont or New Mexico or Colorado. Any of these other states, they always go to California to say, oh, what a sham medical marijuana is, without realizing that the other 14 states that have legalized medical marijuana have very strict conditions that you have to meet and medical records documentation you have to have in order to get that. There's no reason why Iowa couldn't be going along those lines as well. Calling this asinine and saying that you met with an Asian doctor who spoke broken English, that's your excuse for wanting to keep the people of Iowa struggling and in pain and addicted to opioid painkillers instead of using safe, natural, effective cannabis. That's your excuse? Oh, man. Sometimes reporting on these stories just gets so depressing. We hope that the good people of Iowa will vote in a better representative next term than Representative Bodler.
I just want to add to that story since you ended that. He ran in his last election, he won with 7,000 votes and ran unopposed. Okay, on to the next story. If you wonder why there are so many stories in British Columbia about marijuana growers stealing electricity, well, many of the areas have incorporated controlled substance policies within their cities and townships. The District of Mission in British Columbia, Canada is one such area. But on Monday night, in a meeting, they voted to suspend the controlled substance property bylaw for 1 month so it can be reviewed. The bylaws were adopted by the district in December of 2009 and were implemented to help find marijuana grow operations, and they have all kinds of provisions for inspectors to come on your property, inspect, and fine you for a number of things. One of the provision allows the city to inspect a property that is consuming anything more than 93 kilowatts of electricity a day. There's been much controversy in the area as victims of the law who are not growing marijuana have been subjected to unwarranted inspections and have been fined over $5,000 in fees. Part of the bylaw says that inspection costs are charged to those that are inspected. If they shut off your water or power, and often they can do that before an inspection, there are large fees to get it turned back on. An earlier motion to suspend the program indefinitely so it can be reviewed was defeated by council members, much to the disappointment of the packed public that was in attendance. A proposal then from the mayor, James Attaby, to temporarily defer the bylaw for 1 month was approved. The 1 month review means that the council has to come back with a report on changes that they're going to make to the bylaw or have to give a public progress report, and they may ask for more time. The meeting was filled with angry residents, some holding signs that said PSIT, which is an acronym for the Mission's Public Safety Inspection Team, equals Gestapo. There were so many that showed up, some members of the public were asked to sit outside the lobby to watch. One man who came was slapped with a $5,200 inspection fee after his house was inspected in 2009. He says he is planning on suing the city regardless of the outcome of the review. Lynn Grotto, who loves to grow vegetables and flowers in the summer, he starts his cucumbers inside in his basement in the late winter. The elderly man was the subject of an inspection and a fine. As citizens have come forward with large inspection fees and what one city council referred to as, quote, anecdotal evidence that they have been subject to embarrassment and suspicion from their neighbors because of the inspections, talk of a class action lawsuit from those that have been negatively affected by the program is moving forward.
Once again, the unintended consequences of trying to go after people that are growing cannabis in their own homes sweeps up innocent people, and then they start to think that, oh, there's a problem here. Oh, we can't be doing this. It's just like when I was reading the stories about the 13-year-old girl and her family that's forced out into the cold with guns to their heads while the SWAT's conducting a raid for drugs, but oops, they had the wrong address. Yeah, these kind of stories make the news when innocent people are caught up in it. You know, when the innocent tomato or cucumber grower is caught up in these grow-op law violations, then they want to suspend it. But for some reason, if you're growing a different plant, if you're growing cannabis, because it's illegal, that somehow justifies all of this discrimination, all of this oppression of these people. That's the biggest problem I had with Obama's answer today, is the underlying premise that we must stop people from doing this. We must stop people from growing cannabis in their house. Everybody just accepts that without getting out to why. Why do we go to all of this trouble? Why do we come up with these laws? Why do we fine people? Why do we lock them up? Why do we drug test them? Nobody ever wants to answer that question.
And there are many ways that drugs have come across the U.S.-Mexican border, but the most popular way is by foot traffic or by vehicle. There are some tunnels, and some obviously must fly over in planes or in boats and ships by water. But a U.S. National Guard spotted a catapult on video on January 21st near a narco border patrol station along the Mexico-Arizona border. They said it is the first time they had seen anything like it. The border agency released a clip of the video that shows people setting up the catapult and testing it with nothing in it. After seeing the clip, the National Guard contacted the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agencies, who then contacted Mexican authorities. When the Mexican authorities arrived, they found that nothing was actually launched across the border. They were able to seize an SUV that was attached to the catapult on a trailer and approximately 45 pounds of marijuana. The suspects fled before they could be captured. And even though officials watched on the other side, on the U.S. side, they never saw anyone on the border waiting for marijuana to just fall from the sky. U.S. Border Patrol agent Jason Reinfrecht said that this case demonstrates that even in the areas that there is a fence along the border, there still needs to be more video surveillance and personnel to watch over it. Reinfrecht also pointed out that the incident shows how well all three agencies, the U.S. National Guard, the U.S. Border Patrol, and the Mexican authorities, work together to stop smuggling attempts. And just a comment on how these stories were reported on. I first found the video with the catapult on a few different media outlets. Excuse me. But the videos all had the same exact tag. Quote, using a video surveillance system, the National Guard caught several people launching packages over the border fence. Now, it was not until I found the actual story and I read it to find that there were no packages actually launched over the border and no suspects were actually apprehended doing it. But I guess it's all in the semantics. I mean, several people were actually caught on video.
Yeah, okay. Fesha lavage, what? Fesha lavage. I love it. Getting medieval siege weapons now being used to distribute cannabis across the border. It just goes to show it doesn't matter what you do, man. You build a fence, we'll tunnel under it. You close the tunnels, we'll get catapults to launch the bales over the fence. You have aircraft surveillance. We'll build submarines.
I'm waiting for the hang gliding.
The hang gliding bale.
I was gonna say we could train flocks of pigeons to fly the weed over and just drop it an eighth at a time.
Yeah. There we go, eighth at a time. I mean, they are constantly picking up submarines, literally submarines being built in the jungles of Colombia, jungles of South America and Central America. They are building submarines to bring drugs into this country. We have maximum security prisons with all the fences and barbed wire and concertina wire and all the cameras you could possibly want and armed guards watching people 24 hours a day, and there's still drugs getting into prison. When will people realize you cannot repeal the law of supply and demand? We want marijuana. We will always want marijuana. Cannabis, hemp, ganja, herb, whatever you want to call it, however you want to use it, it's just a fact. This country was founded by hemp farmers. This country was founded by people who were required to grow hemp for the best necessity of this country. The first hemp plantation, 1611, in the Jamestown colony in Virginia. This entire country would not exist without hemp. And then, I bring those topics up and they say, oh, well, yeah, they were growing it for rope, not for dope. But yeah, they were growing it for dope too. Marijuana has been used, cannabis has been used as a medicine. It's going back to 2727 BC. It was known that Queen Victoria used it as a medicine, and it is known that the founding fathers were well aware of its medicinal properties. Now, it may not have been something they wrote a lot about, but believe me, it was happening. People have been using cannabis naturally for centuries and millennia, and we will continue to use it. The only question that exists right now is how is that market going to be controlled? world. Are criminals going to control that market? Are Mexican traffickers who behead their opponents going to control that market? Are street corner thugs going to control that market? Or are the American people going to control that market through taxation, through regulation, through sensible market regulations to allow us to grow the most perfect plant nature ever gave us, the most perfect food stuff in its seeds, the most perfect textile fiber for our manufacturing, the most perfect fuel oil for our machineries, the most perfect nutrition for our bodies, the most perfect medicine for our ailments, and the most perfect relaxant and inspirational substance for our creativity. It's time to legalize cannabis.
Let's get inspired.
We're going to inspire ourselves here. Welcome, Ganja John. We didn't get to announce him at the beginning, but Ganja John's here in his Ducks jersey. We're going to take a break. We're right back after this with Daily Toker Tunes.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would say to South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
NORML Show Live reminds you to never consent to a search. If you're holding and you consent, in most states you will be arrested immediately and you will go to jail. If you don't consent to a search, police may try to intimidate you by threatening to bring in drug-sniffing dogs or try to fool you by saying things will go easier if you consent. Yeah, easier for them, sure. Stand your ground, refuse the search, and ask the officer if you're free to go. If they still detain you and eventually find your contraband, you'll be no more busted than if you had allowed the search. But by refusing the search, your attorney has a chance to win your acquittal before a judge. If you consent to the search, your attorney's hands are tied. You can find a list of NORML Legal Committee attorneys specializing in marijuana cases by visiting the Find a Lawyer link at norml.org.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? How to hide herb in your car? Whether to grow your own? How precisely to legalize it? Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place? Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times Magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook blows all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
High in the Rockies, for the first time ever, High Times is hosting the Medical Cannabis Cup in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Come to the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup. There'll be cultivation seminars with High Times editors Danny Danko and Nico Escondido, plus other experts and cannabis celebrities. Attend activism seminars with leaders of the medical marijuana movement, including advice on how to start your own cannabis business. Meet industry leaders in medical cultivation, hydroponics, smokable glassware, hemp products, dispensary supply, cannabis accessories, and more. Plus, Medical Cannabis Cups will be awarded to the best indica sativas, concentrates, and edibles entered by legally operating medical marijuana dispensaries and growing collectives. And don't forget Saturday night when the Medical Cannabis Cup will host the Extravaganza with surprise musical guests. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, April 2nd and 3rd, 2011 at Exto in Denver, Colorado. Visit medcancup.com for details. Be part of the growing cannabis industry. Come to the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday. Our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. Brought to you by the John Doe Radio Show in Denver, Colorado. Accurate and informative marijuana reform news and entertainment. Available on the THC Media Network and JohnDoeRadio.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
The John Doe Radio Show.
John Doe here with your Groovin' Thursday tune on Normal Show Live. I'm not quite sure if this song was played on any of the daily live shows, so what the heck, why not throw it in there again? Ultimate Rage and Sugar Dog, High Above It, this song giving a shout out to Radical Russ Belleville, Cannabis Carry, and Ganja John. Ganja John saying he can mark this off of his bucket list because he got a shout out in a hip hop song, so I'm jealous just a little bit. John Doe Radio would like to be shout out in a... maybe Goose will shout us out in his next album. I'm predicting maybe Goose will shout us out in his next album. If you're not familiar with Goose, make sure you Google Goose Salt Mine Sessions. It is the John Doe Radio Show theme song. No Seeds is, but that's not who we're talking about here. This is Ultimate Rage and Sugar Dog. Song is called High Above It. You can get this song on Normal Show Live's webpage, stash.normal.org. So we meet again next time, Tokers. Thank you to the Normal Show Live Nation. See ya.
Yeah, man. Now tell me how your bud is. You know I just gotta express myself. Heaven's high above the weeds. So I feel it. Like, it's me in the zone. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of I smoke cause I get neck pain. Smoke till I get chest pains. Give me all the best strains. Cause I take my time to get the greatest high. Fuck weed smoke, I like my green vapor ride. You can use less of those chemicals to make cellulose. Plus all the delectable edibles are incredible. Amazing. It's so kind on that yes dear tip. And it's so loud I don't even hear shit. I stack bread like baking cakes. I'm not a cook but I love to get some shake and bake. I like to light at night and wake and bake. Get a full course meal and I'll scrape the plate. Straight up, I'll eat some cookies. I'm smoking on that loud so you can never shush me. Sure got the blunt full of all of the sour kush. One bit turns Sugar Dog to a sour push, yeah. Now tell me how you love it. Yeah. You know you at the top when only heaven's high above it. We on. It's raising sugar, motherfucker. If you ain't smoking, brothers, keep it pushing, motherfucker. Alright. Now somebody show some weed in this bitch. Got my bone like I'm Chong and I'm Cheech in this bitch. You did. I hit the blunt for a few spurts and now I feel nice. I'll pass it to you, sir.
Sugar Dog, puffing on a bone. In my lifelong habit, rapping about it in songs. Cause I've been smoking to the point where my lungs get annoyed at the break between joints. And I'll be talking all the time. Geeking like the motherfucking Joker in his prime. Feed on every time that comes into my sight. Like a Jewish lawyer with a DUI. Eyes looking Asian like a Beijing native. With the color so red like a blazed with Satan. I'm defending my weed. The sensation, I love it when the world's at my feet and I'm sitting right above it. Feast on the whole kitchen like an eating competition. And fuck the bitches who already know the proposition. I'm just getting high to kick it. I ain't kidding with you. So mind your own business as I roll the next swisher. Line Dro, if I feel like chilling. Hydro, if I feel like swimming. Gave Rage the blunt and it's a heater. Inhale it. One puff made his brain dumber than Sarah Palin. That's right.
Wait, what? Tell me how you love it. I don't get it.
When only heaven's right above it.
It's Rage and Sugar, motherfucker.
If you ain't smoking with us, keep it pushing, motherfucker.
Alright, now somebody show some weed in this bitch. Got my bone like I'm Chong and I'm Cheech in this bitch. You dig?
I got my kush in my pocket and I don't smoke it unless I'm rocking.
Rage. I'm a weed user and abuser. Prop 19 sticker glued to my computer. When spicing up my dinner, I use weed, not barley. Cause I'm an active member of the Teapot Party. And we not sorry for backing it up. So you can keep attacking, harassing, and shackling us. So you know what gives me the most fanatical rush? Ganja, John, cannabis, carrying radical rush.
You know, fuck it, Rage. If weed is legal or not. As long as in my pocket it's top primo, I got Half for a apple and another a granddad. And a hatchback just flew in it from Baghdad. 420, baby, that's the area code. Home of the tasty bags of various smokes. So people, unwind from your grind, please. I'm inviting everyone to light up some Rod Green. Now tell me how you love it. You know you at the top when only heaven's right above it. We on. It's raging sugar, motherfucker. If you ain't smoking with us, keep it pushing, motherfucker. Alright, now somebody show some weed in this bitch. Got my bone like I'm Chong and I'm Cheech in this bitch, you dig? I got my kush in my pocket and I don't smoke it unless I'm rocking.
Hit the shit, man. You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media, and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
Hi, I'm Keith Straub, the founder of NORML. In all the years since 1970 that I've been fighting marijuana prohibition, I've learned that drug warriors love to confuse the public with statistics. Lately, they've claimed that there are more teens enrolled in drug treatment for marijuana than ever before. It's a statement that, while true, is intentionally misleading. What they don't tell you is that marijuana arrests have skyrocketed to over 800,000 arrests per year. They also don't tell you that we've gone from a few dozen drug courts in the 1990s to over 2,500 drug courts today. The kicker is that those drug courts sentence teens routinely to drug treatment for marijuana whether they need drug treatment or not. So they arrest more people for pot, require them to enter drug treatment, then claim the higher treatment numbers justify more pot arrests. It's an absurd proposition, but no more absurd than banning a plant. Learn the facts about pot. Visit norml.org today.
One of the most disturbing elements of the war on marijuana is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows firsthand the futility of the drug war and reaches out to the community and to current law enforcement to end our war on drugs through legalization. It's time now to speak to one such officer in our continuing look at law enforcement against prohibition.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm excited to be speaking to our next guest, especially in the context of today's question from LEAP being the number one question on the Ask Obama forum. We are speaking with Staff Sergeant John Darker, who's a military police officer in the U.S. Air Force, stationed in Minot, North Dakota. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing today? Glad to be here.
We're doing really good, and just before we get into any more, I'm just wondering if you happen to catch that question from LEAP to President Obama, if you caught any of the response to that, and if you had any commentary on it.
Yeah, I just saw it about an hour ago, and I was actually glad to hear the president say it's an entirely legitimate topic for debate and not really dodge the question too much, so pretty proud of that, so we'll see what happens with that, but
yeah, it's, at least this time we can say he didn't laugh at us and didn't ignore us, so I guess that's headway.
Like last year, I think he did that, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Now, Sergeant Darker, I'm wondering, you're, it says here in your bio that you're working with military police currently in the Air Force. A lot of times when we're speaking to people in our LEAP segment, it's someone who has previously been in service and then retired. This is true? You're currently serving in the Air Force right now?
Yes, I am. And I just wanted to make clear that any of the views that I expressed today are just strictly my personal views, and they do not reflect the Department of Defense in any way. So today I'm on the radio show as a civilian.
But they've been, have you made your superiors aware of this, that your work with LEAP, and have they had any negative reaction to it, or what's the deal there?
No negative reaction. I don't really try and express it too much around the workplace because
sure,
I've got stuff to do, and I don't want to. Like, you heard about the U.S. Border Patrol agent last year. I don't know if you heard him. He got fired for talking about just basically how drug policy has failed, and I read that the other day actually, and I was just floored by just how he gets fired for that. And it's amazing because we're the people that do the groundwork and fight in the drug war involuntarily and want to speak about it. It sucks because, like, we're supposed to not say anything, and the public wants to know whether our policies are working or not. And I would much rather have the public listen to us, the people who are doing the groundwork, rather than the higher-ups and executives and police chiefs.
Exactly. That's something that we've covered many times in speaking to the officers and prosecutors that join us here on our Cops Say Legalized Drugs segment. Is they point out that at the foot soldier level, at the people working the beats and working the streets, they realize what a failure this is, and that the only sensible way to fix anything here is to go through a process of legalization. But we don't often get to talk to someone who's working in the military. So what are the attitudes and what are the situations that you're dealing with as a military police officer with respect to the war on drugs?
Before I came to North Dakota, I did about 3.5 years of law enforcement up in Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska. And we weekly, if not every other day, would be stopping people at the installation gates coming on. The drug dogs would be detecting marijuana mainly is what we'd find. And I just found later on that there's just no end to it. And where there's a demand, it will be met. And there's certainly other sensible ways to approaching the drugs in America and addressing the real drug problem, which is the people who have a public health issue with substance abuse and such.
Yeah, and you point out also that this drug war violence that's going on in Mexico. You served you're serving in our country here. You're serving our country here, and we've got soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's been more than 4 times the loss of people in Mexico than what we've suffered from our troops fighting a hot war in the Middle East. Let's talk about that a little bit and how you see this affecting how the drug war affects the military with respect to taking its eye off the ball with respect to terrorism or other pressing priorities.
Yeah, like what I said, there's a lot of people that are involved in the drug war, and the military is also there too. And a lot of people don't think about that, but over in Afghanistan, you have the Taliban who are down in the southern provinces, in the Helmand province, where 85 to 90% of the world's opium population comes from there. And if you just took that province out by itself, they would still be the largest producer in opium production. And the Taliban has a lot to do with that. Before the U.S. even invaded Afghanistan, the Taliban actually had a ban on poppy cultivation. But until we invaded, they started seeing that poppy cultivation is a source of revenue, and it came back to being what they are now, as one of the largest producers. And so how the Taliban makes money from this is actually a fascinating thing, because they provide protection for the farmers who grow the poppies. They provide protection for moving the drugs, trying to attack security checkpoints to allow their drug convoys to pass. And then they also launch diversionary attacks to draw troops away from an area where a major consignment might be passing. And the money that they make, it's amazing. And the money that they make, they put the lives at risk for my fellow servicemen and women, and it's amazing. They make hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue from protection to just trafficking the drugs and selling. That's amazing.
Yeah. And we're speaking again with Staff Sergeant John Darker. He's a military police officer with the United States Air Force and also served our country in Iraq. And with respect to that Afghanistan, you're talking about their opium cultivation, their poppy cultivation, but we also, in reading some articles from High Times and some other outlets, I found that, of course, we all here in the community know about Afghan Kush and Afghani, and that region being the source of the plant that we're talking about here on this show. What is the experience there as far as the Taliban and any cultivation of cannabis, or is that not really even a concern compared to the opium?
I haven't done too much research on that, but what I have found is that they do cultivate it, and opium's not the only one, of course. I mean, they have cannabis out there that's cultivating. It also contributes to their revenue that they make. And like I said, I don't have too much research on that.
Okay.
More into that.
One of our listeners in the chat room brought up a question regarding once you leave the military, and we're not saying you specifically, but once a soldier or someone leaves the military and they're looking for a job, of course we're finding that a lot of people are unemployed. There's a jobs crisis in America. How much does a military background help someone if they're going to move on to a career on the war on drugs as a police officer, a prison guard? That is, how much is there a transition between soldier life and being a soldier in the war on drugs?
Basically, I think when you get out of the military and you go to like a police force, some of them are lined up just like how the military is in terms of going up the chain of command and stuff like that, and it's really. It might be a harder chance for some people to get because maybe if you're talking about people from the military trying to get into law enforcement or something, it's easier for us because they always get those veterans preference points or whatever. But like if I plan on getting out and going into law enforcement, and they don't like that I have the issue of supporting that the war on drugs policy is a failure, I will definitely be telling them that, I enforce the laws either way because I took an oath to defend this country either way. And whether my personal preferences that I believe about the war on drugs, they will not affect my professional job.
Sure. So in a situation where, say, you're stationed on a base, and I know I used to live in Boise, Idaho, and we used to have friends that lived out in Mountain Home Air Force Base there in Idaho. And when you come onto the Air Force Base, of course, you're subject to search. The different rules apply. We're talking Uniform Code of Military Justice here, not the Constitution necessarily. So you'll have situations where you have families or civilian friends of servicemen that want to visit, but maybe the family is a medical marijuana patient, or maybe they're a cannabis consumer, and maybe they get caught at the gate or something like that. Tell us how that affects you. I mean, does that just break your heart to have to enforce that, to have to bust someone trying to get on base? They might have a joint in their pocket or a roach in their ashtray.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most, I guess you could say, hypocritical things because you don't want to enforce it, but you have to. And even, like, say in California, if Prop 19 would have passed, if somebody would have came on base with a marijuana joint or a little tiny leaf, they still would have been busted because they're on a federal installation and they're under federal law. And then they get handed over to.
What are the differences for people that don't know with UCMJ? Maybe you would specifically know about Air Force compared to the civilian law with respect to getting busted for possession. For example, here in Oregon, an ounce or less is decriminalized. In Florida, 20 grams or more is a felony. What kind of penalties is a soldier or civilian looking at if they're caught on a military base with cannabis?
Well, with a soldier or airman, marine or whatever, that they get caught with an illicit substance, they are going to be charged under the UCMJ, which is the military code, and they will be processed through the unit, and they'll get what's called Article 15 as a punishment, or it might be up to a court-martial, and they could be sentenced to a federal prison, even if it's an ounce or if they pop positive for a drug test, they can still be getting in trouble for that. As for a civilian, if they came on the base and got caught with it, usually what we had to do was hand them over to the Anchorage Police Department when I was in Alaska, and they dealt with them, but we would still charge them under federal law because it's still an illicit substance. Under federal law, I don't believe that anything is decriminalized for marijuana.
Right. Now, Sergeant Darker, for yourself, just personally speaking, after the military, what are your plans?
hopefully get a job in law enforcement if I decide to get out. Otherwise, make a career out of the military. And the benefits are really nice, especially right now, this economy with jobs. And, retire after 20 years. It's a good deal, but I like being a cop and getting in a patrol car and serving the community and doing that kind of thing.
Well, now you mentioned that you really disliked having to bust the people. You felt it was very hypocritical. So would your choice of police departments, like which state you might want to serve, would their state of decriminalization make a difference to you in picking a place to serve?
Probably not. I'm from California, so I'd probably find somewhere in California. I'm moving to California in a couple of months anyway.
Okay.
So
you'd be pretty good there, with they got decriminalization now and a very liberal medical marijuana program, so that might feel better.
Yeah, but like I said, I'll be working on base, so I'll be enforcing federal law and not the state law.
That's
true. I can't just give somebody an infraction that the Governor Schwarzenegger signed into effect earlier this year.
But after your military career, if you're in civilian law enforcement, then it's a different story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Staff Sergeant Darker. Oh, I'm sorry, Staff Sergeant Darker. We got to run, but I appreciate you joining us here on our Cops Say Legalized Drugs segment, and thanks for your service to our country.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me.
All right, folks. When we come back, we are going to be speaking with the United States Virgin Islands. They've got some new news they'd like to break to us here at NORML Show Live, and we'll be right back after these messages.
76% of Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers, and nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. And over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.norml.org.
Do you really want to legalize marijuana? Prove it. Join NORML today at NORML.org, and your donation will help us spread the growing truth about cannabis. Free speech ain't free,
Free the ganja tree, it's the healing of the nation. Free the Cali weed, good for meditation. Free the pot smokers, they're in a delight. Lighting up the chalice, they keep no malice. Free the marijuana, come on, say. Free the marijuana, hear me, say. Free the marijuana, come on, say. Free the marijuana. Legalize it.
NORML stands for Reforming America's Prohibitionist Marijuana Laws, and that cannot happen without directly engaging our government and elected officials. Local NORML chapters and other affiliated activists relentlessly lobby our lawmakers for a change we can believe in and report on their strategies and progress in this segment we call Our Government at Work.
Welcome back, everyone. We get a call from all the way down in the beautiful Atlantic Ocean, the tropical paradise of the United States Virgin Islands, one of my favorite territories of the United States. And Linda Adler and Melissa, and I'm forgetting the last name, Melissa, from USVI NORML are here. Hi.
Hi. Hey, Russ. It's Melissa Ballin, the producer, director.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. So sorry for forgetting.
Emperor wears no clothes.
That's right.
And I haven't seen you, I think, since the Portland NORML conference.
Yeah, I would think that would be about right. So Melissa and Linda are here because we've got exciting stuff going on in the United States Virgin Islands. And let's turn it over to, I don't know which one of you wanted to announce it. So whoever decides to announce it, go ahead.
Well, let me start real quick by letting everybody know we've talked in the past about the fact that the VI was trying to fully legalize, and we were doing that through a petition process. We didn't get enough signatures to get the petition passed, so we're taking the whole we stepped back and we decided we're gonna do it through education, and then we're going to submit our legislation to the Senate. But we have had the great pleasure of hooking up with Melissa Ballin, who is a producer and director and has worked exclusively with Jack Herer in doing a 30-minute short documentary while he was still alive until his death last year. And I'm going to let Melissa take it from here and tell you what her plans are.
Great. Well, we want to give a big shout out to Radical Russ and all of the NORML followers, because we're getting stronger every day, huh? And thanks to you, you've covered the news, and let people know what's going on. So we felt that there was no better place to break, because we always say we're making news and breaking news. So we wanted to break the news with you. The press release just came out yesterday, and your listeners are the first to hear that we're having a press conference Monday morning in the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Thomas at ISW Studios, which is a well-known production and recording studio in the U.S. Virgin Islands. They're going to be our exclusive production partner, and we are going to support their first ever Cannabis Hemp Education Summit. And we're hoping to have Radical Russ there in person, so you've got to mark your calendar.
Okay,
and, and some other NORML delegates.
Yeah, that sounds great, Melissa. What's the date on that?
Well, it's going to be surrounding 420 Jack Herer Day, so we will be having a world premiere, and some people don't know, we're going to be doing multiple cities in honor of Jack Herer, the feature-length documentary with Be Real, of Cypress Hill, Willie Nelson, Melissa Etheridge, Danny Glover, Redman, and the list goes on of amazing supporters, and some unusual suspects that you didn't maybe know were in support of cannabis hemp and reform. And so that movie is going to world premiere on Jack Herer Day 4/20/2011. And in support of that, several cities are going to be having premieres. But one lucky city is going to be the celebrity-studded green carpet that will be webcast on Be Real TV, and that will be the one that you attend, Russ, and we're going to be announcing which city that will be. And the USVI is a pretty leading contender. It will be one of our 10 cities. We're going to be showing the movie in Berlin and Barcelona and in several of the prevalent medical marijuana cities in the States, of course, Denver, Los Angeles, my hometown, and Portland, as we say, right?
Yeah.
As Tony Boy says.
Yeah. Well, hey, Melissa, I've got to make a suggestion for Denver, Colorado, because on 420, that's where we'll be for the NORML National Conference with all those folks. And I don't know if I'll be able to fly to the VI and then fly back to Denver in one day.
Oh, goodness. We might have to hologram you in like they did with Will.i.am during the inauguration.
I'm all for that. Although I really do want to visit the United States Virgin Islands in person someday.
Well, we have to work on that.
This is going to be my first trip to the USVI, and as you know, we've had some adventures on the road together. The distinct pleasure of directing Jack Herer's Emperor Wears No Clothes with Jack has taken me to some very glamorous places all around the world. Barcelona, the Czech Republic, Fresno. But this time we're going to the U.S. Virgin Islands, so I'm really excited to see the island for the first time. And Linda and I have been talking about the support. She's really the little engine that could, because it's a very small territory and a very small population, but they don't have to follow. They do follow our U.S. Constitution, but they're a territory, so they're not obligated to. And we really have an opportunity here with the voice of the people and the voice of reason to educate on the environmental and economic benefits of cannabis hemp, and they can really make a change that we haven't been able to do. I saw your awesome coverage of the Obama YouTube questions, and I'm actually here in Miami for the NAPI conference, and this is an overwhelming amount of content. that's coming up about interest in cannabis, the documentaries that are coming up, and the awareness. And so it's really interesting to me that our government isn't really following the trends, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, folks, we're speaking with Linda Adler, the executive director of U.S. Virgin Islands NORML, and Melissa Balin, who is working on this great documentary, a great media person out there. And we're going to get this Hemp Expo going on 420-ish, I believe 420, out there at the USVI, along with the premiere of the new Jack Herer documentary. And as we move forward, let me talk to Linda for a second here about the legislation side, because we've been speaking to a lot of NORML activists around the country all week long, because the legislators are now coming into session and they're just introducing new bills for medical and decrim. What's happening legislation-wise in the VI since we last talked to you?
Well, we have gotten in 3 new senators, and I am going to use this. I'm stateside right now, so I'm going to be using this trip to meet with the new senators and to feel them out. We had in the last year's legislature, we had 5 of the 16 senators who were in favor of legalizing. The territory right now is in pretty dire straits financially. Last spring actually, they authorized borrowing $750 million to float us through this year. Now the governor, in his State of the Territory speech the other day, said that we are now $87 million in the hole. Okay. So he's talking about cutting 300 or 400 government jobs. He's talking about cutting all these things, and when we had talked before, Russ, if we were to sell just a card that gave tourists permission to use cannabis on the island, if we only sold that card to 4% of our tourists, and understand St. Thomas alone on cruise ship days gets 10,000 to 12,000 visitors, okay? So if we sold a card to just 4%, that's $12 million a year. That's not business taxes from businesses. That's not, year-round tourism. So we have a perfect time to present information about cannabis hemp. That's why I'm bringing Melissa down. And we are going to, on 420, we are going to present our legislation to the Senate. Between now and then, it's going to be a mad campaign to continue educating them, to talk about the benefits of not just marijuana, but of the hemp plant itself. We're doing things like we're putting together a project that will go into the schools, and we're going to ask the students to design a piece of clothing, and then we're going to work with companies, sewing machine companies and pattern-making companies to make the patterns for the students out of their designs. We're going to provide the hemp material for the students to make the pattern that they have designed. And we're going to have a fashion show, and whoever wins out of each category, we're going to advertise that nationwide. And we're working with Art Institute to get a scholarship or a cash prize for those people to educate them to what we can do with this plant. And there's just so much that can be done. During this educational summit we're going to hold, it's going to be a week-long summit. We're going to do it the whole week of 420, and we have planned to have business people from the Small Business Association come in and teach people how to start a business, answer questions that they may have, how to get a business loan, that kind of thing. We've got a man who's going to come in from the University of the Virgin Islands to teach hydroponics and agriculture. We've got a solar company that, whether we hold a live feed premiere or if we hold the virtual premiere, we're talking to him to see if he would actually use his solar panels to provide the energy for us to run the show. But they're going to also be talking to businesses and to agricultural people of how to use solar in those areas.
And Russ, because it's the whole week of 420, even if we can't have you on the day, maybe we can dip you in and out of that.
Yeah, maybe we can. We'll see what we can do. And ladies, we got to wrap things up because we're done with the show, but I encourage everyone to check out usvinormal.org for more information on this. Plus, I'll be posting the press release on our blog at stash.normal.org. Stay tuned, folks. Hour 2 is next. Toker Talk Radio. We're going to play the full Obama response video with your live call-ins at 971-533-7111. For Cannabis Carrying Ganja John, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.